Hello everybody, here we are today seeing if all 7 Canadian teams will make the playoffs this year, as well as possibly seeing if Canada's Cup drought will come to an end. But before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So I have to try to wrap this up fairly quickly as the third period just got done for Four Nations face-off between Canada and the US. Things are crazy and I'm excited for that. But anyway, as I'm sure you've all heard by now, hockey is Canada's game. And there's been a lot of incredible moments for a lot of these Canadian teams, Montreal and Toronto especially. But I think that it's kind of been obvious that for a while now, there's been a lot of heartbreak. The last time that a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup was 1993. Since then, I believe they've had 7 trips to the Stanley Cup final, and all of those have ended in heartbreak, with the most recent example of this being the Edmonton Oilers last year, losing in Game 7. So there's been some opportunities to bring it back home, but it hasn't happened just yet. But I think that this year looks like they might have their best odds in terms of the amount of teams making into the playoffs, as well as their chances of seeing a lot of those teams go deep. And this is really just because all 7 teams have a good chance at the moment to at least make it into the playoffs. But I think a couple teams kind of stand out. There are 3 that have really good opportunity to go on a deep run. The Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers out west really are a great example of this. Both of these 2 teams look like they could secure the top spot in their division, Edmonton winning their first division title in something like 40 years. And then, of course, you have the Jets winning their first division title, possibly for the first time ever. And this is where you can see them possibly win the President's Trophy as well, too. So you would have the 2 top teams out west be Canadian teams. That is really good in terms of higher seeding and maybe seeing them go out there and go on a run, while also kind of setting up an interesting playoff path as well for some other teams. But we'll kind of get into that a little bit later in the video. But then you have the Toronto Maple Leafs as well too, shifting back out east. This is a team that has been consistent in the playoff picture. I know that Winnipeg and Edmonton also have been really consistent for a decent amount of time. But for the Maple Leafs, this would be 8 playoff trips in 9 seasons. And the Leafs, while not having a great go of things come playoff time, are once again kind of back in the fold where you're like, maybe it could happen this year. The East has been shuffled around a little bit, and I think there really are only 3 or 4 teams that I think could go out there and win it. Toronto may be in that bunch. They feel really weird, they feel wrong, but at the same time too, I think they're poised really well to make it at least out of the first round this year. And if they can just understand that they are in probably one of the better spots they've been in recent years, with teams like Boston and Tampa Bay again kind of being down and out, to go out there and really take advantage of this and then seize the moment, we could see them also go on a deep run. But it's not just them that could possibly go on a run as well too. We'll kind of keep it in the province, as you have the Ottawa Senators that are occupying a wildcard spot right now. Ottawa may not be viewed as a true cup contender at the moment, and to be honest, I don't blame anybody for that. I don't view the Sens as a true cup contender either. But at the same time, we kind of talked about this with the way that the division was stacked at the moment. The Sens a little bit ago were 3rd in the division, Toronto was 2nd. I said if they beat the Maple Leafs, because the Leafs have struggled in the first round especially, they wouldn't have a lot of travel. Maybe they go out in the second round, take advantage of that, whereas another side could be a little bit more fatigued, and then they make it to the conference finals out of nowhere. Things have kind of changed a little bit in terms of how the Bolts have been able to kind of get back into that 3rd spot in the division. But either way, the Sens are looking to make the playoffs for the first time since 2017, which once again gets another Canadian team in there. Importantly, it's more about just filling those spots and then helping out your odds. The more Canadian teams that are in the playoffs, the better the odds are of ending this cup drought. And I think that the Senators are probably going to get there. I don't know. It's really tough. I feel like Detroit probably will occupy a spot. And then I said that there's a ton of teams that are competing. But I'm just trying to go on that more optimistic route. Whereas for a team that I'm feeling kind of pessimistic right now about is the Montreal Canadiens. The most Stanley Cups in any team's history, or in any team, or for any team in the league's history, I should say, as I'm getting stumbled along the way there, is the Habs. Yet they have not won in a long time. And then this season, while it started off really good and things looked like that they should go out there and make the playoffs, they just kind of faltered, especially right before the break, went 1-7-1 over the previous 9 games. I did a video talking about that, and the problem is now there's a difference of about 7 points they need to get to even occupy the final wildcard spot, and they would need to close that gap while they're running out of time. Other teams probably doing well. The Red Wings, like I've already talked about with Todd McClellan, having a great run. So I'm not so convinced Montreal could get there, but there still is the opportunity for them to go out there and do it. And well, I don't think that they would be on a run either to where they could be deemed as Stanley Cup favorites. They got a taste of what it was like back in 2021. Who's to say that maybe if we play devil's advocate, they couldn't be a team that surprisingly comes out of nowhere to win it? Unlikely, yes, but let's just go out there and say maybe. Which leaves us shifting out west once again to talk about two teams, the Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames. Both of these teams are in a spot where their playoff footing is not totally secure. The Canucks are in at the moment, and I feel like they should be good enough to get there. Again, there's a lot of talent on this team. They won their division last year and just should not have fallen off as hard as they did. Granted, of course, injuries have kind of really got at them, especially in the blue line, but it is what it is. And the thing is, they've kind of created some of their own problems, so you just have to kind of deal with it along the course of the season. And at this stage of the year, are they contenders? No. I was really hoping that as a Canucks fan, they would be able to build off of last year. Instead, it looks like they would be probably an early first round exit, maybe second round exit. But again, it's more about just funneling those Canadian teams into the playoffs to at least have the opportunity for guys like Pettersson and Hughes to have a big series. Thatcher Timko to finally kind of lock in and bounce back from an injury that kept him away from playing. That is there for Vancouver. I think they could make it. As for the Calgary Flames, they are out of a spot right now, but they are close. And the thing is, they weren't really expected to be there, so let's play devil's advocate again and say, well, a lot of people didn't expect them to, but what if they do? There's not a lot of time left. They're relatively close. They could get in. Now, if Vancouver and Calgary both wanted to get in, unfortunately, they would need some help. Probably teams like Colorado or LA faltering down the stretch. I don't really see either one faltering. I'd be really surprised, probably more so by Colorado, but again, I feel like I never give LA enough credit, and they're having a year where they're probably set up to finish at least third in the division, but there is a path, again, for them to go out there and make it. So is every team going to go out there and make it? Probably not. But I will say the good thing is, at this stage, about 55, 60 games for the year for a lot of these teams, the path is there, and like we've already talked about before, there are some good Canadian teams this year. I mean, there is seemingly, every year, at least one. But right now, I'd say that there's three pretty good teams, two really good teams at the moment, Edmonton, and then, of course, Winnipeg. And I think with the way things stack out west, the odds might be really good to once again see another Canadian team come from the Western Conference. I know some people could be concerned and say, well, with how things are stacking up, you would probably see a first round matchup between two Canadian teams. Yes, you probably would, but at the same time, too, while that eliminates a Canadian team, that also means a Canadian team is going to go out there and advance in that series, which is a good thing. And you have to realize as well, too, if it seems like Calgary, if it seems like Vancouver that gets knocked out, they may not be able to put up a sufficient fight against some of these other teams like Winnipeg and Edmonton, and you might actually benefit from that by those teams having an easier series where it's quicker and they're more, I guess, energized, and they can move on to the second round and be more in that mindset. Whereas I guess if the Flames or the Canucks were able to pull off an upset, they'd be like, we're just playing with the house's money at this point, so let's go out there and just try to do everything we can to bust this bracket. And that's the thing. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be either that it ends necessarily in terms of saying, oh, it's because the amount of teams that get in, but I think it does help. Do I see all 7 getting in? No, but I think 4 should, 5 maybe. And that's where I'm really, really excited. Out east, I only truly see Toronto being capable of going out there and getting the job done. But out west, I think that we could possibly see Winnipeg and Edmonton in the Western Conference Final. And if that happens, guess what? Again, kind of what we talked about already, that would guarantee a Canadian team making it to the Stanley Cup Final, which would once again guarantee the possibility of a championship and ending this drought. It would be weird to see the Jets go out there and end it possibly. It would be weird to see possibly Toronto out east. I think it'd kind of be fitting with Edmonton, again, since they had a lot of success in the 80s. But at the same time, too, I think along the way it sets up a lot of really fun and interesting matchups. Connor Hellebuyck, best goalie in the world right now. Connor McDavid, probably the best player in the world right now. So just storylines like that would be interesting along the way. A lot of pride, I think, as well, too, with these fan bases, but as well as the nation kind of dealing with a lot of nonsense right now in terms of U.S. and Canada relations. But I do think it would be really, really nice for Canadians to be able to say, Cup is ours once again, and we are able to kind of put the past 30-something years behind us, as it's been daunting, as the odds are ever stacked against them. That feels like a movie reference. What am I referencing there? I don't know, but 25 American teams, 7 Canadian teams. Maybe this is the year where they fill 7 out of those 16 spots and things get crazy, and we'll see. But what are your thoughts? Leave those down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you're new. Again, I apologize. Things are kind of rapid fire as I'm trying to get back to the game. We're going to be talking more about Four Nations Face-Off Saturday because tomorrow's video will be the video I'm recording now. So yes, tomorrow's Friday. The day after will be Saturday, so we'll be recapping that. But anyway, leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to subscribe if you're new. I'm going back to the game. Who do you think is going to win? Let me know. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you love hockey, all right?
Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.